protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
Hello again, friends, and welcome inside, at least for me, Ben Garrett, at Spirit Ben on Twitter, the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On 3, the RiverLand Roofing Studios, RiverLand Roofing for all your roofing needs, 662-644-4297. Joining me today on Talk of Champions is Ole Miss Athletics Director Keith Carter, who is, man, when are you going to get busy, dude? Like, when are you going to start doing something, right? I mean, it hadn't been wild for you at all the last, 3, 4, 5 months, really for the whole time, 6 years that Lane Kiffin was here. How you feeling today, man, now that some stability and normalcy is setting in?
Man, it feels good. It feels good. It's been an interesting, 4 or 5 weeks for sure. And then the last week or so has been pretty tough. But man, it feels so good to, have Pete in place and this staff kind of pull back together. And man, the guys over there in the Manning Center, they're ready to roll and get back on the grass next week and all that stuff. So it feels really, really good. And just excited, not only for the team and Pete and everybody, but for our fans that we kind of know we're dealing with. And man, we can focus on this playoff run now.
From a coaching staff standpoint, before we get into some other stuff, man, a lot of people questioning, asking me on the Ole Miss Spirit, and I know that you're the athletics director, you're not making the hiring anything, but with the truncated calendar, I mean, you packed in probably 3 months worth of stuff in what used to be 3 months worth of stuff into 4 days, right? And now a lot of it is putting the full-time coaching staff in place. Usually you'd be doing that without games coming in a couple of weeks and all that kind of stuff. But ideally for Ole Miss, when would y'all like to have that piece of it finalized? Is it just a matter of get to the playoffs, and then if you get it done, great? I mean, what were the kind of conversations with Pete as far as filling out this staff, both for the playoff but also for the long term? I mean, when ideally would y'all like when those conversations did y'all kind of figure out, man, we'd like to get this done? Is there a time like that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think obviously, first priority over the past few days was, hey, let's solidify this playoff staff.
Mm-hmm.
What is this going to look like? Who's going to call the plays? Obviously, we got Charlie coming back to do that. We got Garrison, we got Kevin Smith, we got Joe Judge. The offensive side of the ball is we think is solidified in a great way. We got a couple other moving parts and maybe some new staff members that we're going to announce here over the next couple of days that we'll think everybody will be really excited about, as we make this run too. Obviously, we know the defensive side of the ball is strong. Pete obviously is now the head coach, but all his guys over on the defensive side, they're ready to roll. And then in a parallel path, kind of thinking about what the future could look like, what the permanent staff could look like. And I think a bunch of these guys are probably going to remain on staff. I feel confident with that. But there's always in a transition, there's going to be some new faces. And I think, Pete is a mastermind, has a great plan. Just being over in that building the past couple of days and just seeing, how many moving parts there are. And it just feels like he's got a handle on everything. Obviously signing day yesterday and, just a ton going on over there. So I think kind of getting past signing day, now we can really focus on, filling out the rest of kind of the temporary staff, going into the playoff, and then, what our permanent staff could look like as well.
As far as the permanent staff, and this is another question I've got at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, affiliate on 3, sign up today for $1. And honestly, I don't know it. If Pete were to hire a guy, an external candidate for a spot, right? Could those coaches coach in the playoffs theoretically, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can get them in. And matter of fact, again, I think you'll see a name that everybody will be really happy with here in the next day or two that will coach in the playoffs with us and will be awesome. And so, again, not 100% ideal when you have a transition and a few staff members, go away. But Pete's done a great job of pulling some guys back and then also, adding some pieces. But yeah, absolutely. We'll have some new faces. And matter of fact, there's already some new faces in the building, from an administrative standpoint and doing some things like that. So, man, they've been rolling over there.
You've been, man, those few weeks where, look, you weren't taken back by this. You understood that Lane was in the process of talking to 4 different schools. I mean, now it's come out, it wasn't just Florida and LSU, but Florida State as well that was trying to back channel them and stuff like that. As the athletics director and you're dealing with a head coach who's actively pursuing those things, but also trying to protect the best interest of what you have to protect the best interest of, Ole Miss. How hard is that? And how difficult is that to navigate, especially when I'm sure as an Ole Miss student, it got really frustrating at points. How tough is that?
Yeah, it was frustrating, and it's it was tough. I think the main thing that I was trying to keep a gauge on was, what's the focus in the building? Are we continuing to play well and practice well and those and we were. I mean, we did those things, and I think that was something that Lane and I talked about really from the very beginning, was that, hey, we cannot have another 2022, where we started off great and then all this stuff comes up and we just tank. I said we have to stay focused. We got to win these games. This team is good enough to win these games, and we can't let the distractions filter in and stop that. And so, to everybody's credit, the players first and foremost, the staff and Lane, I mean, they won the games, and so that was important, getting to 11-1. But just the way that it went down. And again, I know the calendar's wonky, and when coaches are getting fired in week 3 and week 4, like it's a new dynamic. It really is. And so there is some, to the defense of some of these coaches, it is hard for them when all this noise gets out there. But, I wish this one had been handled a little better. I will say a lot of communication was happening internally. But again, really my main focus, Ben, was just, we had folks in that building, obviously making sure that, this team and the staff and everybody were focused in getting it done. And obviously, getting to 11-1 was what mattered.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something that's very important. It's something you touched on with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. I put out the video of Charlie hitting the tarmac and walking in, and Ole Miss fans were understandably angry, frustrated. But I don't blame Charlie. I think I said the exact same thing here on Talk of Champions. Honestly, for a guy who only pushed back publicly over the last few weeks on one thing, and that's an ultimatum being issued that actually proved to be absolutely true. He gave them one, and man, those guys, they didn't sign up for that. But for Charlie, I know one thing that's been a question is, you're bringing a guy back that's agreed to a new deal or agreed to a deal with LSU, understanding that he's a great dude. But is there any concern then that he's going to be pre-portaling your roster and stuff like that? I mean, because those are considerations you have to make as the AD, right? How do you balance that? And is there any concern for you in that way for a guy like Charlie, who is supposed to, at least he agreed to a deal, going to follow Kiffin to LSU, though he's calling the plays? Is that something you have to consider?
I'm not worried about that at all. And quite honestly, I think that coaches who are not in our building working, game planning, I mean, you have a lot more time when you're sitting in Baton Rouge to pre-portal and do those type of things when, you're not worried about a playoff game. Charlie Weiss is a great man. And really from day one, he said, hey, I want to finish what we started. To me, it's a lot different with the head coach than the staff. The head coach is the one that chose to go take, another position and put some people in some really tough spots. Charlie, these guys believe in Charlie. You talk to Trinidad, you talk to Keywan, you talk to this offensive line, Daquan Wright. These guys believe in Charlie. And Charlie's going to call a great game. He's going to call a great game, hopefully multiple games. And I know he wants to do that. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he's going to do that. Coach Golding, obviously, Coach Golding's not going to let somebody back in the building if he doesn't think it's the best thing to do for our team. And so we feel good about that. I know, there's going to be some detractors or some conspiracy folks out there, whatever. But we want to put these players under the circumstances, put these players in the best position they can. And man, Charlie Weiss has been incredible this year calling plays. And we can't wait for him to call plays, in the playoff.
Well said. And he's one of those again, and he's not the only one. I've talked to a lot of assistants who are put in the exact same situation, and a few of them had to make the hard choice not to get on the plane. And in the moment there, that's tough to do, right? I mean, and I just think it's unfair for all those guys, what they were kind of put in that way. For you, is there anything over the last couple of weeks that you would have done differently at all? Because I asked Lane that, and immediately said, I'm not talking about this stuff. You know what I mean? He wasn't ever going to talk about this stuff. But I feel like, and I've said this, that Keith was put in, the only real outcome here could have been what it was, right? Like you took it as far as you could, and Pete's in place. And because like this was completely unprecedented, never happened before. No one even envisioned that it would be a possibility. So is there anything that you look back and go, man, because hindsight's easy, but for me, I thought you handled an impossible situation as well as you possibly could. So for you, is there anything that you're like, man, I could have done this, or are you kind of accepting where things are?
Well, I appreciate that. I think, for us, getting to 11-1 and getting through the regular season was the most important thing. And obviously there was some scuttlebutt around, that week before the Egg Bowl. Should he coach in the game? Should he not? And the chancellor and I decided, hey, Coach Kiffin is our coach right now. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things that are happening. But he's our coach. And obviously that week we were in the building. We had people watching practice. We felt good about it. We were talking to players. And obviously we played really good in the Egg Bowl, and so, to me, you get past the Egg Bowl, and then, as soon as we find out officially that he's leaving, that's when we kind of, implemented what we had been thinking about and talking about internally the whole time. There was never an option for coach to coach in the playoffs, and we moved. And, obviously having Pete right there in the building, a guy that just totally respected by everyone in that building, by every player in that building. I said it yesterday, not just the defensive guys, the offensive guys too. And so it's somebody who loves Ole Miss, somebody who believes in what we're trying to do here. So I just thought, and the chancellor and I thought, this is a guy that's, an incredible choice, obviously for the short term, to hold this staff together, to rally the troops and galvanize the team. But man, this guy's going to be a big time coach somewhere. He needs to be a big time coach right here at Ole Miss, and for a long time. And so it's been awesome. And just in the last 2 or 3 days being in that building, to me has even solidified in my mind even more that we've made a great decision with Coach Golding.
Yeah, how have the players responded when you're walking around the building? Obviously, people saw the team meeting and standing up and cheering for this man. I mean, he's a ball coach, guys. I mean, one thing Ole Miss fans got to get used to is just only shark emojis on Twitter, not really caring about doing a signing day press conference, which I honestly thought. I mean, there's some people that said, well, he should have done a press conference. I get that. I appreciated a coach going, these players haven't been talked about at 11-1 for 2 weeks now. Doak Walker Award finalist Kewan Lacey has not been talked about for 2 weeks now. Trinidad Chambliss, who should be more in the Heisman conversation, Kewan Lacey too, haven't been talked about. I appreciated that. It's going to be different, right? I mean, this is not the same kind of guy, but you're right, man. He cares about one thing. He just wants to pour into Ole Miss and for it to win. And right now, when you're single digit wins away from a national championship, Keith, and the hurricane of everything else that has been the last 2 weeks, I'm sure not just for fans, but in that administrative office, heck, in that Manning Center, when you're walking around, it's got to be a similar sense of like normalcy and relief, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned the press conference, like that was I got a call from Pete, and he said, hey, I need to talk to you about something. So I went down to his office, and he's like, hey man, I'm just thinking about this presser. This was Tuesday. He's like, I'm thinking about this presser tomorrow. He's like, I know that's what normally happens, and you want to introduce the new coach and put a suit on and kiss babies and do all those type of things. But he's like, Keith, this isn't the start of something. This isn't like an introduction. I've been here 3 years. Like, I know all these guys. I know all the donors. I know Ole Miss. He's like, I don't need to be introduced. Like, we need to go finish something. We're trying to finish something. We got a game in whatever that was, 18 days. And he's like, it's not that I want to go out there and do it. He's like, but I just think we need to lock in, and I just thought that was like so refreshing. Obviously he was like, we got to get the focus back on the players, just as you mentioned. If you saw him at the game, he was like, yeah, I'm happy to, go out and address the crowd at the basketball game. He's like, I want my team with me, all those things. And so I just thought it was really cool. And we're going to do that at some point. We're going to roll him out there and let him answer questions and do all that. But it was just really cool for him to be thinking like that. Like, hey man, we got signing day Wednesday. We got a lot of stuff going on. We're putting staff together. But the bottom line is, man, these players, they don't need me to roll out there and, pomp and circumstance. Let's just get to work. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, again, ball coach, man, and it's just different. It's not a cult of personality anymore. Have you announced salary yet? I mean, what the salary structure is? I don't know what it's going to be or anything. I haven't seen anything, but typically in the old days, we'd have a press conference. Y'all have like a sheet for us and stuff. For Pete, what's kind of the salary structure and all that kind of stuff? What have y'all come to?
Yeah, we're finalizing that, and I hope we actually finalize that today. And so we'll get you that sheet that you're talking about. We'll probably get that out maybe even later today, or for sure by tomorrow. We would probably. Well, don't hold me to that. We're getting close.
No. But buddy, you've had
we're
enough.
Get that out here shortly.
Yeah, you don't need to commit to anything. It's interesting.
Myself in the corner there. I don't like doing that. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I know. Like, don't. Yeah, definitely don't pin yourself down, because, man, the day-to-day you've been living is, oh my gosh, dude. You mentioned the plan that he presented. What really stuck out to you, especially because, like, you were still considering any number of options, right? Going as late as Saturday. You're meeting with Lane. You're still having to juggle all these balls in the air, and finally you come to the decision on Pete. What a part of his plan really went, dang, yeah, this is the guy for me. You know what I mean? This is where it works.
Yeah, I just think, you look around the landscape, and obviously, as I mentioned, when coaches start getting fired, in the third and fourth week, and we know that Lane's name's always going to be associated with jobs. We're working from probably, the end of September, up until, Saturday on a parallel path with our search consultant, and, just what other candidates could look like. Obviously, you're watching games all season, watching guys and different things. And, you look around the landscape, and Pete was always, in the mix. He was always on our radar. He's right there in our building. And, as we talked to our search consultant, even they were like, hey, you need to continue to, think about Pete and all this. Of course we were, but, you look around the landscape and you just realize, man, like this guy's won national championship. He's been at big places. He's coached at the highest level. Obviously he's done tremendous things here since he got here 3 years ago. I mean, our program is just elevated to a really high level. So we were just like, man, it makes total sense. We got the guy right here in our building that, again, can solidify things and galvanize things short term to help us make this playoff run. But, more is equally important, can be the guy for years to come. And, we keep talking about legacy and dynasty and all this stuff. It feels like Pete Golding could be a guy that could be here a long time and really do some cool stuff. So that's what really intrigued me and the chancellor. Obviously both of us Ole Miss guys that, don't want to be anywhere else. We want somebody that wants to do it here. And, man, Pete sure seemed like that guy.
As far as like players and contracts and all that kind of stuff, like how does that piece work? Because, fans ask the questions. Of course they do. They don't understand what a mess it is out there. Right. And one of them is, well, what about players that could opt out for the playoffs? And I was like, look, guys, they're contracted through Ole Miss anyway. It's year to year, but, I would anticipate that, let alone somebody who spent their summer doing those 5 a.m. up downs and runs in the Vaught Hemingway Stadium, giving up their dream of a lifetime that's right in their face out of loyalty to Lane Kiffin or something. But when it comes down to doing that business with the players and stuff like that, how does that work? How does that work as far as is there anything that protects Ole Miss for the players? Like, because they're going to come poaching and stuff like that. They're going to come calling. They've already been doing that. Everybody does that anyway. But just how do contracts work, and how could they be more binding? What would be the suggestion if somebody said, all right, what can we do to make these things more equitable and fair for both sides, not just one side getting everything and the other side just saying please and thank you,
Yeah. Well, our players, obviously they're getting paid now, and their contracts, a lot of them are kind of backloaded. One of the larger payments is in most of the contracts is one of the last payments, kind of post, when the season is over. So there's incentive financially for them to continue to play. But man, I just, being in the building, talking to the leadership group, on Sunday morning a few times, and being on text chain with them and different things, like, man, these guys have no desire to opt out. I mean, these guys are fired up. I mean, they're getting to go. They know they can win a national championship. You look around the landscape you look around the landscape right now, and there's some great teams out there, but there's no unbeatable team. And for us, and it's going to depend on matchups and all those things, but man, they truly believe they can do it. And so, like you said, this is what you work your whole life for, to get to do something like this. So, I mean, there has not been, I haven't even heard the words opt out, and I think, Billy Glasscock went with Lane. So, Walker Jones, Matt McLaughlin, they've been in the building working with Pete, obviously through signing day yesterday with the high school kids, talking to our current roster on some retention stuff, all that stuff. So we got a great, great piece. We have great pieces in the building. And, but yeah, I think our guys, man, they cannot wait to get back out there. And as Pete said, get back on the grass on Monday and get after it.
And spot the ball, dude. Like
Spot the
spot
ball.
the
That's
ball.
right.
I mean, I love that, dude. I mean, that's just about that's what's the bit most have been the most unfortunate thing. Not some viral stupid moment where off of something dumb Ben said. The unfortunate moment was that the players and this team, this historic Ole Miss team in the modern era of Ole Miss, the most successful era ever, we have been talking about everything but. And that just sucks because, man, what a story. Not just Trinidad, not just Keewan and a single season rushing record for Ole Miss, but also Keith, Bryson Sanders in his first year starting, right? A part of the leadership council. No one, I mean, instead he has to answer questions about like, did Lane get on the plane? Which I just think is absolutely ludicrous and speaks to a wider, bigger issue that the NCAA, the feckless NCAA, forgive me, Keith, it's my show. I got to say what I got to say. Won't make any changes. But for you, big picture now, moving forward into 2026, what are like the biggest challenges, right, that you're facing or that you know that Ole Miss has to attack, approach? And it doesn't have to just be football. Like right now, what is the health of NIL of everything? I mean, now that the biggest answer has been or question has been answered, right? What is now kind of moving forward into the next fiscal year? What are the challenges Ole Miss is facing?
Yeah, I think they're the same as they have been. Obviously, we kind of, like you said, gotten through the football, coaching situation. And again, I feel incredibly confident that Pete is going to put together a great staff that's going to do incredible things. But as you move into next year, it's still about, how are we finding above cap NIL, legitimate NIL and those type of things. I think our resources are going to be there with anybody in the country. There's a lot of discussion with this whole, Lane to LSU thing about, compensation for him and, NIL and rev share for the players. Like, man, we're right there. I mean, we're going to be, and we've proven that we've been better than that than almost anybody in the game the past 3 or 4 years. We're going to continue to do that. So, but that's not just for football. That's for basketball and our Olympic sports. We just hired a new soccer coach we're really excited about. And so we've got, a lot of really good things going. I'm excited about our spring sports. That's always a great time. And shoot, we're a month away from being in January, and before you know it, all those spring sports will be rolling. So we're excited. I mean, this has been a little bit of a drain, obviously. You hit it on the head. I mean, to me, the very most frustrating thing that we've been dealing with is the fact that we're having this magical season and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about, this team and the makeup of the team and, just so many great stories. You hit the big ones, but man, there's so many great stories, on this team. And so I'm excited, here over the next few weeks to kind of lean into those stories. Pete has been, 100% about let's lean into these players and, get the focus back on them. But man, Ole Miss athletics in good shape. Chancellor Boyce has been incredible and was incredible throughout this whole process. So we're just excited, to keep it rolling.
It was really funny, man. But before anything else happened after the game on the Egg Bowl, I walked up to Chancellor Boyce, and we never really met face to face before. And I just went, hey, Glenn, Ben, Garrett. He's like, oh yeah. I just want you to know you're pretty awesome, dude. And he was like, oh, I don't know about that, but like, dude, kind of a dog. The Chancellor Glenn Boyce, you know what I mean? Like, heard some things. My man, he was fed up too. But I mean, y'all two Ole Miss guys, right? And this process, yes, you got to be business, but it can get personal. You have real blood and sweat equity. So does he too. In this place, you care about this place. So as it's going through this TMZ entertainment news nonsense for 2 weeks, Willie Woney, and not talking about, pick a guy, Andrew Jones, a transfer from Grambling, who Ole Miss got from South Carolina, didn't start at the beginning of the year, was a special teamer. They needed a guy to come in and shore up the run. He switched jersey numbers from 12 to 44. He starts doing that. Now he's a bopper right next to TJ Bulldottery. Like, I'm with you. The story of Ole Miss has been and always will continue to be greater than any one single person. And now that the focus can be on that moving forward with the coach who understands that specific assignment, man, what a dream next month or two it could be, right? And to hear that the players are all in with Pete in that way, it's a really encouraging thing. Last question: are you still having fun? Are you having more fun now, or is it just like, yeah, it probably hadn't been too much fun for like 2.5 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta probably been like, damn, dude, I want one day of just, oh, what did so and so look like at practice today?
Yeah, no doubt. It was funny. I guess throughout all the past couple of days, they were showing back to to Kiffin's introductory press conference, and I didn't have this gray, that I have now 6 years ago.
Silver Fox, Keith, own it.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but no, it's fun, Ben. Man, I love it, and I'll tell you this, and I tell our staff this all the time. Like, there's these moments in college athletics now. It's super hard. The minutia of all the business side of it, and where we're going with the new model. You throw in all this distraction stuff with the coaching stuff we're dealing with, kind of specifically here. There's a lot just going on that just bogs you down. But man, when I sat in that room with those 15 guys Sunday morning, the leadership group from the football team, man, I was just amazed. I was amazed at just how, they were grown men, how they were mature, how they had a rational conversation about what they wanted, what they needed. And they look you in the eye, and it was incredible. And you have those moments where you're like, man, this is why we do it. This is why we do it, because of these young men, these young women. That I think about. I say this too, like, I've got 3 kids of my own, but man, I've got 400 that I feel like are my own, that are student athletes. So we want to do everything we can for them. And you need those moments every once in a while to kind of bring it back and say, okay, we're dealing with all this garbage, all this stuff, but at the end of the day, we're doing it for these young people. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I think I saw Reese Davis, somebody at ESPN, all of them, rep by CAA, saying something to the effect of like that, they're going to get game day to come to LSU, Ole Miss next year. If you need any suggestions for ideas for marketing stuff, I've already talked to a lot of your folks, but I got some ideas. You know what I mean? Let's just say your friend Ben has got some ideas for that one. I don't know what it could be associated with. Keith, what could it? That's fine. He's Keith Carter, Ole Miss Athletics Director. Dude, you're a friend first, and I appreciate you. Ole Miss legend second. Because this man was one of the best sharpshooters Ole Miss has ever seen. Getting to tell the story of Ole Miss and not Lane Kiffin now is going to be such an incredible relief through a title run. And Keith, of course, is a big part of it as the athletics director. Thanks to him, this has been Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. RiverLand Roofing for all your roofing needs. RiverlandRoofing.com, 662-644-4297. My thanks to B&A Bank, Drew Moak of USA Benefits Group, Tannehill, Carmen, Estate and Title, all of y'all out there that support us, man. Thank you so much. It's been wild the last, not just few days, but for 2 weeks. And just knowing that Keith was running the thing and knowing what I know about how you care about this place, man. Thank you. Appreciate you. And we'll do it again.
Sounds great, Ben. Thanks for having me.